Alright, moving on from the pecking order of the nations from 3,000 years ago, it's time to go for my favorite Stargate ride lines, based on my own personal opinion based on their design and playstyle. So let's begin, and spoiler, a lot of them are Link Joker because Link Joker aesthetic is just cool, and it probably has the most amount of archetypes despite the fact that it's one of the newer Stargate clans. But anyway, let's just begin with my personal top 5 favorites. So on number 5 on my list, it's Omega Glendios, because the playstyle Omega Glendios is Omega Locking, basically expanding the idea of regular locking, just going even further of making your opponent can't unlock them in the next turn. And of course, the idea of the deck is forever locking your opponent's allies until you pull off the ability to world end your opponent, which is basically creating a black hole. And also, the fact that you can use reverse units in this deck, like any reverse units outside of the clan. That's something I like about the deck, but unfortunately the deck doesn't really do much other than basically stall until you win the game. But I do have to say it's a little more interesting than most other decks I've seen, for Stargate anyway. Number 4, Dimension Robos, whether it's Daikaiser, Original or V, or even Dayusha, because I like the design aesthetic for one. 2, got Dai for both of them, with basically Daikaiser to Great Daikaiser to combine with Shadow Kaiser, and there's also Great Dayusha, which combines with the Goyusha with the other parts to make Great Dayusha. You can even Legion with both of them, with Dayusha and Daikaiser, which is also awesome. And the playstyle of just both decks, like Dayusha basically focuses around gaining more power with a finishing off crit, but Daikaiser focuses around guard breaking your opponent, and it's something I kind of like. And whether we have more dimensional robos like Reverse Dayusha as well, which has a little funny combo that you can do with basically Great Dayusha and then go to Reverse Dayusha. Reverse Dayusha is also very awesome as well, especially using gravity against your opponent in a tyrannical way. And then number 3, we got V Beast Deities. Why I like Beast Deities in V? It's because of the extra attacks. Attacking your opponent in the main phase, and if it hits or miss, you get a certain type of bonus. Azure Dragon is the start of it, where you basically just use your rear guards to do those extra attacks, but Ethics Buster focuses more on the Vanguard, but also very similar concept. Just basically attacking your opponent in the main phase, and then re-standing them in the main phase before going to battle. And that's something I really love about the Beast Deity deck in V. And then when it comes to Extreme, I just like the fact that you can turn every single drive check into basically a trigger. But overall, the amount of attacks in Beast Deities is something I really like. The design looks pretty cool, and whichever V boss unit you choose, it's all about the extra attack, and it's something I really love about the Beast Deity deck. And it also punishes your opponent if they decide to block it. So it gets nastier and nastier when you're closer to death. And then number 2, Star Vaders with the Chaos Breaker lineup, because Chaos Breaker is just awesome. But one thing I really like about the Star Vaders Chaos lineup is the lock from hand. Yes, playing against it is not fun, but I kind of like the style because it means that your opponent cannot just escape from not locking your rear guards, because it used to be in a way where if you just don't call anything, you don't get locked. But thanks to Chaos Breaker lock from hand, they can't escape that, and that's something I really like. Especially with the V version, where it's about focusing on stealing your opponent's marker. Sure, you give your opponent a marker, but you steal them back even more, and I love the V version for that as well. And the other forms of Chaos Breaker is just cool, like Deluge. And before we go to number 1, for honorable mentions, we got God Hand Dragon, mainly on the difference of the Nova Grappler playstyle, focusing on front triggers, and front triggers basically give you all that extra power. Too bad we don't have much support for him, and still no new form of God Hand Dragon compared to other the Shinamon units. And then we go to Deleters, which focuses all around deleting your opponent's Vanguard, making that their Vanguard doing nothing, along with Vanish Deleting, meaning permanently losing your opponent's rear guard. But it doesn't really do much else, and you can override the delete just by riding. And then we got Zeal, which unique playstyle is that it shrinks down your opponent's power. And I kind of like that, especially that there's a Legion for it, and also it's a polar opposite of the Dimensional Robos, where instead of gaining power, it shrinks down your opponent's power, playing the villain playstyle. But it doesn't really do much else, which is why it's not on the list. And finally, number 1, Messiah. Basically, Link Joker's playstyle, but extended to yourself. And I really love the self-locking mechanic. You lock your own stuff just to get more benefit, and then you unlock them mid-battle, so you get more multi-attack. And it's something I really like. There's also self-locking pluses, and then more unlocking in the mid-battle just for you to get more attacks. And more stuff that you just basically do from lock and unlocking. And also the Messiah units is also very cool, especially Harmonix Messiah, the very first G unit, admit. And whether we played the original or V, I still just like the lock and unlock playstyle. But also, the strides are very cool as well, especially on how much of an extra power buff that they gain just from you unlocking your stuff. And that's the reason why it's my number one, because of its design and the playstyle. The Genesis looking dragons are just cool, and it's a goddess. So that's it for these rankings of my favorite Stargate decks. What do you guys think of them? How would you rank them? And what other decks would you put in, along with how would you be ranking your own personal favorites? I just gave you mine, and go ahead and tell me yours. And remember, this is all based on my personal opinion. But than that, that's it for this, and see y'all next time, and moving on to Dark Zone.